nome del Padre, Figliolo, Spirito Santo. Amen.
Such a separation.
Well, again, welcome everybody. So nice to see everybody today at our Sunday gathering. And as Reverend Roxy made mention, it is a beautiful sunny day today. And actually, very literally, Reverend Vincent and I will now be celebrating. Actually, we will be playing today. We'll actually be playing for real. We'll be playing in our first softball game since last January in Las Vegas. So we are kind of celebrating that type of play. It's another form of play, but it's a happy experience. So we're also pretty happy about that. And I think actually Reverend Vincent is joining us from the fields. So that's really a great thing. So my talk today, seek only truth to experience the truth. And I've been kind of reminded of this lately because recently I've been sharing, perhaps you know this or perhaps you know not, but I do feel like my understanding of the Course has broadened recently. I feel like that there has been a lightness in my life that has happened more recently, productivity, a lot of really good things. And the experience that I've been having has been more one of laughter and joy and just kind of having fun with things and not taking things so seriously. And so it's been a really kind of nice experience to have, although I will share there's also been some recent things that also I found challenging. But I just, I wanted to talk today just about some of those experiences and they're actually kind of different in a certain way. So what I've been noticing in my own life as I go about my study in A Course in Miracles, and I was sharing this a little bit with my Thursday night class, is just what a profound and genius document of philosophy that we are studying. It is a literary document that requires, it doesn't require, but it just has amazing kind of a literary standard. I mean, for gosh sakes, it's written in iambic pentameter. It uses metaphors. It uses sometimes literal interpretations and requires us as students to be able to distinguish that. It has, of course, a theology that undoes the mistakes of Christianity, saying that there is no sin, guilt, and fear, undoing this idea that we have to get our salvation through the sacrifice of Jesus. And in terms of psychology, it uses modern day psychology. And in fact, it meets us exactly where we are. Because without this modern interpretation of denial and projection, we really couldn't have the understanding of the Course. But today I want to talk a little, I want to emphasize something a little bit different around that. And I want to talk a little bit about the philosophy of A Course in Miracles and why that is such kind of a genius document. Now, I've read in different places and by some various course authors that philosophically speaking, the Course doesn't just come from the spiritual realm, abstract or not tied to any other spiritual philosophical thought system on the planet. That in fact, the Course in Miracles was very much written for the Western mindset. The Western mindset that has been very influenced by Judeo-Christian thought, by Greek thought, and I might say in more modern times by capitalism and the idea of being very busy and doing and being productive in the world and creating things and doing things. And we do see, and so what happens is that in the Eastern world, there was kind of a different development. There was, since early times in the Eastern world, there was this notion, there were spiritual documents that the world was an illusion. There was this notion in Hinduism and Buddhism, not all of it, but there were texts, there were beliefs that it was okay for people to actually put down their striving in the world for the material things and go to an ashram or go off and be an ascetic and to explore the origins really of our life here, the phenomenon, you might say, of our existence, the physical realm and the physical existence. And that's really what we're doing here in the Course in Miracles. Like, in terms of what I can understand from the Course in Miracles, it's really putting those kind of principles forth in the reading from today that Reverend Kim read so beautifully. It really talks to us about how, we appear to have these lifetimes or these lives where we're bodies and we have all these adventures, right? Serial adventures. And we're trying to seek for pleasure and avoid pain and, do what we're kind of conditioned by the ego to do. But what I think is kind of fascinating is that, like my title says today, we have been always seekers of the truth. We have always done this. So one of the things that I was interested in is that I heard a Course teacher talk about how the Course came out of the philosophical tradition of Neoplatonism. And Neoplatonism, of course, you might see in that, neo meaning new, and Platonism meaning referring to Plato. Now, before everyone gets all upset, why am I mentioning Plato? I've mentioned Plato in the past, so it's okay. But Jesus references Plato in the Course of Miracles. He references the allegory of the cave, which I've talked about as well in the past. But it's also true that Plato was starting to get, as brilliant as he didn't have the whole truth. And there was another philosophical thought system that came from one of his students of his academy. And his name, the founder of Neoplatonism, was Plotinus. And I found this fascinating because, as I've said in my philosophical understanding of where the Course comes from, is that Plotinus, it's Plotinus, but it is pronounced Plotinus, lived in about the 2nd century, between like the 2nd and 3rd century. And what was genius about him is that he took the traditions of the Greeks, of the progressive Christian thinkers, not the St. Paul Christians, which is where most of Christianity gets its theological basis. And he also took the teachings of the Gnostics and he kind of merged them. And what he did was he started this idea that we are all again, this is in the Western world. I'm not talking about the Eastern world and the Eastern religions or spiritual philosophies. And what he did is he came up with this idea, this kind of paradigm, that there is the one, which we would say in the Course in Miracles was like God. And then he said the one then expanded and created in his mind what was called the intellect. Because it was simply one, it just flowed and emanated out and created this intellect, okay? Which, if you think about it, is thought. That's what it represents, it's thought. And from there was this further kind of creation of what we might today consider the soul. That is this experience of folks having a separate existence from the one. And what was amazing about when I when I studied, when I kind of took a look at this, is that it was at this period in time when the various folks that came after Plotinus and others, when they basically decided and came to the philosophical conclusion that that the mind was supreme over matter. Now, what does that mean? Well, in our terms, it means that spirit is eternal and the body is temporal and is not real. So what is it that lasts, right? And so it was an important moment in history, in a sense, because for the West, now there was this almost intellectual permission to begin to emphasize not as much the material life and the day-to-day serial adventures, as the Course says, but now to also go within and to contemplate our true reality, to truly, to seek truth. And what's interesting about this is that Plotinus actually lived during an era when he lived under the Roman Empire, and he actually lived for a time in Rome itself. And he became a counselor to the Roman emperor. And things were pretty bad in Rome at that time. The Romans were being besieged by Germanic tribes. Some of you might remember that from your history. And he was a counsel, actually, because he was very well known as a deep thinker and smart person. And the emperor at the time became under his influence. And which is kind of funny, I have to say, and ironic, is that the emperor got so enthralled with Plotinus's ideas about letting go of the material world that he stopped really wanting to be the emperor anymore. And he started like just being more of a monastic kind of person, more contemplative, more thoughtful. And he didn't really see it that important to take care of the day-to-day things of the empire. And the empire kind of suffered over it. Although the emperor's soul may have advanced and may have benefited, it wasn't necessarily his experience. It wasn't necessarily the experience of Rome that benefited, but nonetheless, this is how it went. So, what I want to say about this then is that, we study A Course in Miracles, and as we go through and we study and we practice it, as Reverend Tony says, it's really important to embrace this idea that we're practitioners, that we're healers, primarily our own healing, but also others in terms of who comes in contact with us. But it's really, really important for us, I believe, to just continue to be open to the various dimensions of studying A Course in Miracles and how it opens up. Like as we go throughout our experience of this, until we perhaps know or experience that we may be awakened, to really keep our minds open and curious to what A Course in Miracles says. And I think probably many of you may have this experience, and I think sometimes I do too, is that, one of the reasons I go to a class or facilitate a class in the text is because it disciplines me to read the text, because my Western mind really does want to, get caught up in the busyness of the world and, relax and so on and so forth. But, having the structure of the class really helps me. And what I find as I continue to do this on this, expansion in this journey, that Holy Spirit is constantly prodding me and giving me these like little gems or little insights. And I know each one of us are different. We all have our own different styles of learning the Course and experiencing the Course. and you know, healing and miracle working and forgiving and all that. But I do think it's really important for us to embrace the intellectual part of the course as well. The intellectual part is cool. The intellectual part is fun and curious. I mean, I did this when I was doing this. I didn't really know what before this talk. I didn't really know what Neoplatonism was, but I had always been curious about it, and so I went and studied it. And it's not easy. It's not easy. I had to look up a lot of words, and that's like with anything. The vocabulary of any field is the thing that you have to master in order to become more proficient at it. And so you do that, and you look at it, and you look at these. It took me to looking at Gnosticism, and these different thoughts and this different historical time period, which it's influenced. But what that does is that it furthers my love for A Course in Miracles and my understanding of it and the geniusness of it, really, and the practicality of it. I mean, it's not like Jesus, when he transmitted the Course to Helen and Bill, was coming. He didn't transmit it to some, alien being in another galaxy, right? The geniusness of it is that he put it in the language that's going to last, using iambic pentameter for centuries. The geniusness of it was that he took it in the intellectual traditions of the psychology, of the philosophy, of the theology, and made it an advance for us. So advanced, in fact, that it is now on par with any spiritual philosophy or document on the planet. And it has now taken the Western mind and put us in a place where we can awaken and we can see this as a dream. And it's done it in a way by taking our own vocabulary of the Western world, salvation and sin and guilt and the experience that Jesus had and how that was taught to us, and taken everything and reinterpreted it so that we can have this experience and understand, in our own minds. And if you even look at it, like, just think about the lessons this week. What did the lessons all say? Not only did they refer to truth, as today's lessons did, but what they also did was they said, take 5 minutes of every hour, right? Take 5 minutes of every hour and think about the lesson, apply the lesson. Okay? And like, our Western minds are like, what? 5 minutes? Oh my God, I'm so busy. I got this to do. I got to watch Netflix. I got my work to do. I got deadlines, And I have to tell you, I got caught. That's one of the things I was telling you about. Once I turned in this talk on Tuesday, I think I wrote it, and Wednesday, oh my God, everything started happening in my life. I started to have all these deadlines because as a teacher, we're going back to partial in-person learning, which is exciting. But then I had all these trainings I had to go to, and I had grades to do, and I had a new class to prep for, and softball's starting today. And I had all these other COVID things we had to do for COVID health screenings, or not, things that we had to do. And I noticed I started getting cranky, and I noticed I started getting irritable. And I noticed I started thinking, I think I want to go back to the time when I was less busy and I had more time and I could kind of chill out more, But what I know is this, folks, is that if you're in attending this today, you, like me, in your own way, are seekers of the truth. And that truth is our reality. And that our reality is always peace. And it's always joy. And it's always furthering our awakening experience. And it's a joint venture. And we're doing it together. And so whether your path is one to be intellectually curious like I am, or to go out into the streets and and minister to folks out there, or if it's a job that you have, or if it's your family, or whatever it might be, know this, that the Holy Spirit is going to be there. And the Holy Spirit is going to instruct you in the ways that are best for you. And really, the only thing that our job is to do is to acknowledge that there is a higher truth, there is another reality, and that we are on our way. And that's my talk for today. Thank you.
Nel nome del Padre, Figliolo, Spirito Santo. Amen.
Such a separation.